The spiritual communities of all times, all nations, and all religions have always obeyed certain rules as to diet. This does not only aim at keeping your body a healthy and suitable tool. Much more important is not to impede the growth of your soul by inappropriate, for example, too heavy or too voluminous food. To set up and comply with strict rules about diet against the appetite of the body is the first step towards establishing the rule of the spirit over yourself. The vow of the spiritual disciples of earlier times, the monks, contained the three promises of obedience, poverty, and chastity, symbolized by the three knots in the rope of their habit. The New Age demands of an Agni Yogi to live in the middle of the world. His more up-to-date life principles are therefore obedience, living in two worlds, and selflessness. Modern man does not like the word obedience. He associates slavish submission and considers obeying incompatible with his freedom. The look of the new man is completely different. We are practicing obedience to the cosmic laws, which are, after all, valid always and everywhere. In truth, to be guided by them does not affect your freedom. On the contrary, it's the only way for you to attain your freedom, namely not to fail, but to move forward. As the Bible, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, and other holy scriptures, Agni Yoga contains an abundance of instructions on how we can ascend. It would simply be foolish not to follow this higher wisdom. It would be unwise not to listen to the advice of the elder brothers of humanity. They are ahead of us. They are standing already there where we still want to go. They show us the way up there. Finally, we had talked about the need of your choosing a teacher and following him on the path. This must become a practical reality of your everyday life. But why should you look for a teacher if you then do not listen to him? And why should he provide teachings if you decide not to do what he tells you? In earlier times, the monk left the world in order to live a holy life in solitude. Those days are gone. Our task is to live a holy life in the middle of the world. This does not change the fact that the soul, as a spiritual being, is a stranger, an alien on the material level. If you want to be a soul, If you want your soul to live the life of a spiritual being, you must learn to live in the world of the soul. For example, during meditation. The disciple on the spiritual path lives in two worlds, in the spiritual world and in the material world. He visits his homeland regularly, even before his death. In the one world, he seeks knowledge, ideals, instruction, guidance, strength, and comfort. In the other world, he has to transform the ideas received into material reality. We had already said, selflessness is the practically most important characteristic of the new man, because an improvement of the conditions on earth requires, above all, to overcome the ruling egotism. The spiritual man today must not be poor. On the contrary, it is quite desirable that he owns land, houses, factories, and the like, but only if he uses them properly, namely entirely selflessly and solely in the interest of the common good. Finally, we come to the question, what does the new man do all day? With what does he occupy himself? Agni Yoga says, first of all, with the communication with the higher worlds, with the teacher, a practice also called meditation. Also Jesus, being asked what the greatest commandment is, said, "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind." Second follows the service to the common good. The third sphere of life is the service to your neighbor. Only at the very end you yourself come into play, but not to have a good time, but in order to perfect yourself. Please note that the conventional order of the old man is just the opposite. He thinks first and foremost of himself, then perhaps a little of his family, barely of the common good, and not at all of the highest. This classification of the life of an Agni Yogi into these four spheres goes back to the following wonderful paragraph. Divide everything into four shares. The first for the highest, second for the common good, third for your neighbor, and fourth for yourself. But the hour comes when only 3 parts remain, for the fourth will be swallowed up by the second. Such divisions are called Phiri. Nothing but the heart can indicate the boundary lines between them. But let the sequence be flamingly inscribed. This makes clear that the fourth sphere, caring about yourself, might one day become unnecessary, because self-perfection has the only sense to enable you to serve the common good even better. The more you practice Agni Yoga, the more you will find. A successful, satisfactory life crucially depends upon your realizing all these four spheres of life equally. The one is lacking the selfless service. The other is still to be made suitable for such a service. A third one is lacking with the higher communion, the direction in which his endeavors should go, etc. Let us now briefly look at each of these four spheres of life. Coming to the first sphere, Agni Yoga does not like the term meditation, at least not when it means the passive, unproductive sinking into a real or imaginary nirvana, possibly combined with the neglect of one's worldly obligations. This will most probably be an escape from the harsh reality, or a subtle kind of egotism. For the Agni Yogi, meditation means the communion of the soul with its home, with the spiritual world. Through this connection flows down to you comfort, strength, joy, knowledge, and guidance. The higher communion provides your soul with spiritual food, namely imagination, high thoughts, ideas, and ideals, as man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. Helena Röhrig has exemplified and taught us this highest form of Agni Yoga meditation. She has received, through her purely spiritual conversations with her non-incarnated teacher, a real treasure for humanity, namely the books of Agni Yoga with their thousands of pages. We should imitate her and learn to hear the voice of the invisible teacher. The higher communion is the only true joy of a spiritually minded person. In this second sphere of life, you strive to realize the new construction, the progress of evolution, the creation of the new world. Here you make your specific, individual, irreplaceable contribution to the enforcement of the rule of the Spirit in the world. At the place where you happen to stand in your everyday life. The study of the teaching and the connection with the higher world remain imperfect and fruitless if they do not lead to practical work. The thoughts and ideas that you receive are meant to be implemented and to be made a reality in your everyday material world. The third sphere of life is about the needs of the persons with whom fate, not by chance, brings you into contact. Family, relatives, friends, acquaintances, neighbors, work colleagues, and all others who require your charity. Here you will find an abundance of everyday needs and a wide range of urgent work. The spiritual path can be started nowhere else than in your small, personal, seemingly insignificant surroundings. The obligations arising therefrom must under no circumstances be neglected. On the contrary, they show you the first steps of your ascent. In the last sphere of life, you have to learn and to practice, to continually perfect yourself, to ascend to ever higher levels of the hierarchy. We can speak about a spiritual education by the teacher, which alone renders you capable to make your contribution to the realization of the plan of the hierarchy on earth. On this field of work, you are primarily concerned with expanding your consciousness, refining and spiritualizing yourself, educating your heart, and freeing yourself from bad qualities and habits. To conclude this broadcasting, a final word. Agni Yoga is not practiced far away from the world, behind monastery walls or in an ashram in the Himalayas, but in normal everyday life. None of you will have to leave the life conditions in which he, not by chance, was placed. You will receive instructions, advice, orders for execution in the world, tasks to practice, but all this solely for the use in everyday life. Therein lies the great beauty of this teaching.